Hello and welcome to the Money Compass. In each of our Money Journey episodes, Julie brings to you a special guest to share their treasured memories along with the highs and lows of their very own unique and emotional money journey.
So welcome to today's episode of the Money Compass podcast. Today, I'm joined by Lisa Johnson, who's going to be sharing with us her money journey. So Lisa, for those of you who don't know who you are, would like to just introduce yourself.
Hello, thanks for having me, first of all. So I'm Lisa Johnson and I am a mum of 9-year-old twins. I'm a travel lover and I help entrepreneurs make passive and semi-passive income streams in their business and life.
Right, fantastic. Okay, so my first question for you today, Lisa, is what is your earliest money memory?
So I've done a lot around this because I'm a big believer in money mindset and the work that you guys do. And my earliest memory is my parents arguing about money. So I think my mum, we never had any money when I was growing up. And I think my mum had bought something that my dad thought was frivolous, that we didn't need. And so there was always arguing. And I remember that particular time, but there was always arguing over money. And that's my earliest memory.
Oh, no, fantastic. So do you think, I think obviously your earliest money memory, they do say that your money mindset comes from about age 7, it's kind of set. So what I'm going to ask you now is to share with us your money journey and see what impact that certainly had on you.
Yeah, well, it's quite long. So
hey, everybody, you're going to need it. Like,
yeah, get a drink. When I first was, when I was growing up, money didn't have any kind of impact on me. I didn't realize that money was even a thing. You don't, I think, when you're really, really young. Yet I grew up in poverty in a council estate in Lincolnshire. And we were in a lot of poverty. We were the people that we couldn't even buy the foods that we wanted. It was that kind of having to choose how much we could eat and that kind of thing, and not getting vegetables because they were more expensive than some other things out there. So it was, quite hard when we were going. But as a kid, I don't think I really realized that it mattered. I was very much like, some of my friends had nice big houses and some of my friends lived in like the council estate, which is kind of rough where I was. And so, but it didn't mean anything. Like I never went to somebody's house and went, oh, look, they're in this amazing nice house. It was just like, oh, yeah, that's my mate down the road and that's my mate down the other road. And it was fine. And I was happy. And then my mother left when I was 10. And so we were suddenly brought up by a single father and it was a one-parent household. So money was even tighter because my mum always worked. And then I was lucky enough, I thought it was luck at the time, to be able to get a scholarship to a private girls' school. It was a boarding school and I was going to be a day pupil. And I thought this was great. I was one of only like 2 people in my school who had passed these exams to get this scholarship. But everything changed on the first day of that school, because I hadn't realised then that because I was so happy and I didn't really care if I didn't have money, I hadn't realised how other people viewed it. And right from the beginning, it was very obvious that I was poor and that they were all very rich. We came from such different places. They would be picked up in Bentleys and Porsches. I would be picked up on the back of my dad's old motorbike because that's the only transport we had. So it was, I was the only person with the ticket to get free lunch. I was the only person that had a secondhand uniform. And so very quickly, you know what kids are like when they're 12, you are immediately seen as the one that is different to everybody else, and different gets picked on. So I was bullied from that day onwards. So my next few years were just hell. And when I was older, when I look back at it now and I think about the money mindset issues I had, the first one was very easily, people from where I come from don't make money, because I'd never seen anyone else from where I came from make money. Like nobody had even been to university. Everyone where I come from had got a job as like a cleaner or a care home worker or in a shop and things like that. And sometimes in an office, but rarely. And so I didn't think people like me could have a business because nobody I knew had a business. And the same thing happened when I was thinking about, do I want to make money? Without even consciously knowing it, subconsciously, I was terrified to make money because I really thought of rich people as bad people, because those people that had bullied me at school were rich. And so in my head, there was a link, they're nasty people. So if I get rich, people will think of me as like one of them. And I never want to be thought of like that. So I can see how all of my childhood like completely kind of gave me the root for the issues I had with money in adulthood. But I got married when I think I was 17 or just turned 18 to somebody who was much older than me, but again, who was poor. He was living in poverty, and we lived on like a farm in a caravan. And for 3 years, that's how my life was. And it wasn't a great situation, you know, it wasn't a nice marriage. And I eventually got out of that. But again, every time I was going through these things, I had no money. I was starting again every single time. Never had money of my own. And then finally went and got a job. But I was so terrified of people by this stage because of everything that happened to me, that even in my first job, I got picked on because they all thought I was like aloof, when actually I was just scared. I didn't want to talk to anybody because I thought I'd get picked on again. And that ended up happening. I actually got sacked from my first job and was told that they couldn't sack the whole workforce, and they were worried for my safety, so they were going to sack me instead. So again, there I was, no money. Like my whole life has been this succession of not having any money. And then everything changed, and there was a situation where I was, you know, suicidal at the time, and I had to make a choice whether I was going to live or die. And when I made that choice, I knew that if I was going to live, I was going to live, and I was going to ignore everything that had happened to me up to that point. And I was going to make as much money as I wanted and do all the things I wanted to in life. And that's the choice I made. And so I started climbing a ladder in the corporate world. Office junior, £35 a week, you know, climbing up. Made mistakes, you know, we've all done it, like tried to climb up the ladder, and I made mistakes in the early years. I was bankrupt at age 25. A judge actually told me, you are bad with money. So another thing going into my subconscious for later on. And then eventually, you know, became successful in the field that I was in, which was investment banking. I went and got a law degree by distance learning while I was working full time so that I could better myself, and then went into investment banking and did really well. And then got pregnant accidentally with twins. So everything changed again. And I had to go, okay, well, I can't go back to work when they're 5 months old as a single parent. So what am I going to do? And so I went and got a job as a PA again, right back to the beginning of my journey, and was suddenly having to live on 20,000 a year instead of the 60, 70,000 a year I'd been used to, and with 2 more mouths to feed in an area that was pretty expensive where I was living in London. So things changed again. Suddenly I had to think about what I could afford to buy, what I could afford to eat, what, you know, having to be thrifty with things. And that's when I knew I was going to have to start my own thing. And that's when I started my own businesses. And then everything changed. And, you know, 4 years ago, I started my consultancy business. The boys were about 4 or 5 at the time. And now, you know, over the past 4 years, you know, everything has changed. And I now make, you know, between 3 and 5 million a year. It's been a bit of a journey, and one where I'm not so far away from where I was not that long ago that I don't know that I could go back there. Do you know what I mean? Like, I know that I could do it again. I know that I could go back there. I'm not frightened of it anymore, of being poor, because it's just it's a state of mind more than anything else.
No, absolutely. I mean, and obviously your journey, having watched it on social media, has been absolutely fantastic. And your launches in the last sort of 2 years, October last year and June this year, have just been absolutely phenomenal. And I remember when I joined One to Many, looking at the numbers of the people, being a money person myself, you can imagine I knew what I paid to go in, and I'm watching the numbers going up, and I'm going with the calculator, and I'm going, she's up to so-and-so, we're on so-and-so, and like, watching it just go up. And it was like, for you, it must have been like it was obviously coming into your bank account. For me, it was an exciting thing to watch as those numbers grew and grew. And I'm like, holy crap, look how much. That's just an amazing launch. And it's just a fantastic story. I mean, looking back now, is there anything, for any moments in your life, obviously your moment when you were very low, you made that decision. I mean, if somebody was in that situation now, is there anything you would say to them now as advice?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is so much can change so quickly. There were times when I thought, I really want to live. This isn't fun. You know, having no money all the time, seeing other people do well when you're not doing well is one of the hardest things I think that can happen. And fighting to be able to just get your basic needs met when you don't have money, and you know, you're having to just try and work out like a proper low budget, how much can we afford to spend on shopping this month kind of thing, is a really difficult thing to do when you're seeing others with money. But if I could look back now, and this isn't just me, this is so many of my clients I see this happen to, who start in poverty, and not that long after, you know, within a year, 2 years, they have money, they buy their own house. You know, things happen that they didn't even think they could. And I've been in that position. So if you're in a position where you're thinking it will never change, and I think when we're in that position, we all think this is never going to change, this is how it's going to be forever. It doesn't have to. Things can change so quickly once your mindset starts changing.
Yeah, and I think the mindset is the first thing. I mean, what we do is a lot of things we can do about teaching people how to like look after their money. But if your mind is in the wrong place, you're never going to get to that point. And sometimes it's very difficult when people come out with conversations and go, I'm never going to have any money. It's really, really hard to kind of go, the reason you probably will never have any money is because you've told yourself that.
Yeah, it is definitely that. But I mean, some of the things that you do were so important to me, and not even things that you think you need. So having battled to even be able to, you know, buy the most basic things, when you suddenly have a lot of money that you didn't expect to have, and suddenly you have it, no one tells you how to spend it. No one tells you what to do with it. And it's people like you know, who understands about wealth management and how to make that money work for you even more, that became a lifeline to me. Because I'd never had money before, I kind of went crazy. Well, I can do whatever I want with it. I can buy whatever I want. All those things that I wanted all that time, I could now have. But, you know, that's a fool's game until you start thinking of, well, actually, I need to make myself secure in the future.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important thing as well. When people suddenly come into a lot of money very quickly, it is about planning for the future and making sure you're in place. And another group of people you see in that situation is like footballers who make lots of money very, very early on. And that's why they always need to have somebody to support them, because you'll find them basically doing adverts on telly when they're 50 because they haven't made those plans in place. And it is important to actually, when you've got it, and it doesn't mean you have to give up a really nice lifestyle now. It's just making sure that you're planning for all occasions, which I think is really, really important.
It really is. And I have a great lifestyle now, but I also have the pension now sorted out. I didn't have a pension until 3 years ago. I didn't even think about it. So like that kind of thing is now sorted, and just savings and property and all of those kind of things, whereas before I didn't, and I still get to enjoy a nice lifestyle.
Yeah, and it's just finding that balance and making sure you've got it right. And, you know, it's great to be like, I can afford everything, but it's like maybe you don't need to afford everything right now. So need everything right now. So definitely. No, thank you so much for sharing your money journey with us. So Lisa, obviously it's a Money Compass podcast. I love travel. I know that you love travel as well. This could be a hard question for you. Where do you think your favourite holiday destination is?
I go to about 15 places, 15 countries a year. So this is a really hard one for me.
Yeah.
I think the place that I've enjoyed the most is Vegas. And it's because, you know, when you're young and you have no money, you see somewhere that seems like money, that looks like money. And Vegas to me was that, like bright lights, casinos, all these fun shows, all these places to eat. And I couldn't afford any of it. And one of my first holidays was to Vegas on a shoestring, like a proper shoestring budget. We stayed at the Travelodge on the Strip. And then each time we went, as I got more and more money, we stayed at a nicer venue. You know, we started off at like Circus and Luxor, and then it was the Bellagio and the Venetian. And there was always this hotel that I've always wanted to stay at called the MGM Skyloft. And it's at the top of MGM, and you have a butler, and it's just amazing, like with brilliant views. And when I was younger, that was my, you know, when everyone writes like, if I could win the lottery, what would I do sort of thing. That was where I would go. That would be my thing. The year before last, we went and stayed in it. And it was crazy because it really shown my journey of these hotels in Vegas, of what I could afford at the time. And we always enjoyed ourselves anyway. But that was kind of the moment that I felt like I'd made it, because even when I was like 18, 19, that was the place I always wanted to stay. And it took me 20 years to get there.
That is fantastic. And I do think you can do Vegas on a shoestring. I mean, you can get your margaritas for $1. You can get your prawn cocktail downtown for $1. And it's just like, you can really do it on a shoestring if you need to. But it is nice to be able to go and do the nice restaurants and the nice hotels. So yeah, and actually Vegas is also my favorite place to visit too as well. So, and we've not been since December 19. So it's like, I'm hoping we get there later this year, because it's kind of like I miss my home.
Don't you? I miss it too. Like it's just a feeling of being there.
Yeah, it's like my second home. It's like,
I know exactly what you mean. Where do you stay when you go there?
So we've actually got timeshare. So we actually we normally stay. We move around because we try and pick different places. But what we normally do is we'll normally have a couple of nights in like a really nice hotel in a suite. So one of my favourites, although I like the Bellagio, I like Wynn and the Venetian, but it's actually Cosmopolitan has got balconied rooms.
Love the Cosmo.
So, and I love the balcony rooms because it's like, I really like to be outside, because a lot of the big hotels, you've got lots of glass and you've kind of in this aircon, and I'm like, it's don't get me wrong, the rooms are beautiful, but to be able to go on the Cosmopolitan, sit out on the balcony, have a beer in my dressing gown, looking down, which is probably one of the best strip views, I think, from Cosmopolitan.
Beautiful there. And the chandelier bar in that place is unreal.
Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. And there's so many good, I mean, I don't think there's anyone in the world that does cocktails like Vegas.
Not a daiquiri anyway. They're my favourite strawberry daiquiris in the world.
It's just an amazing place. And I think, it's, people always say to me, what do you like about Vegas? And it's like, it's everything about Vegas. It's not the gambling. That's kind of like, almost like it's there, but it's secondary. It's the food, it's the shows, it's the drinks, it's the hotels, it's the kind of, I think it's really hard to explain to someone who's never been to Vegas.
I would say it's like a playground for adults.
It is completely. And it's so big and it's so hard to understand. I also remember taking Becky, who I work with, for her 5th anniversary working with us. We went to Vegas, and she said afterwards, explained to her mum that they arrived at the Bellagio and we walked 20 minutes in the hotel to get to the restaurant. So you can't comprehend that.
How big things are there.
This is it. It's like walking down a main street in a sort of town, but that's just one casino. It is just absolutely fantastic. So yeah, no, we better stop, because we could talk about Vegas all day.
We will.
But maybe I should do like a Vegas on a shoestring kind of episode.
Do it.
I'm definitely going to do that. That'll be really good. So thank you so much, Lisa, for joining us today. Do you want to just tell everyone where they can find you, and obviously find your £1 million or $1 million or $3 million launch and program, what it's all about? And actually also what I meant to ask you is also about your twins. I know that they've recently just launched a book subscription box, if you want to mention that as well, because that looks very cool too.
Yeah, it's just they wanted to do so. I wanted them to learn about business, because I don't think we taught it enough in education about money, and they wanted to start something that helps kids to read more. So we've started a subscription box where you get gifts with the book, so kids are more likely to read. So yeah, you can find that at thereadingadventureclub.com. And if you want to hang out with me, probably the easiest place these days is Instagram at Lisa Johnson Strategist. And there's always some behind the scenes on stories there.
Excellent. That's fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I will catch up with you soon.
Definitely. Speak to you soon.
And with that, we've completed today's episode. We hope you have enjoyed following along with us today and taking another step closer to a financially secure future.
If you've enjoyed today's podcast, you can head over to themoneycompass.co.uk, where you can find out more information, hints and tips from today's episode.
If you'd like to get more involved, share your own experiences and learn from a friendly community on a similar journey to you, why not join us in our Facebook group, The Money Compass, where we will support you in navigating your way to financial success.
Thank you for listening, and see you next time.